Okay, so chapter 22, The Prophecy Comes True. We were the first heroes to return alive to Half-Blood Hill since Luke, so of course everybody treated us as if we'd won some reality TV contest. According to camp tradition, we wore laurel wreaths to a big feast prepared in our honour, then led a procession down to the bonfire, where we got to burn the burial shrouds our cabins had made for us in our absence. Annabeth's shroud was so beautiful, grey silk with embroidered owls. I told her it seemed a shame not to bury her in it. She punched me and told me to shut up. Being the son of Poseidon, I didn't have any cabin mates, so the heir's cabin had volunteered to make my shroud. They'd taken an old bedsheet and painted smiley faces with X'd out eyes around the border, and the word loser painted really big in the middle. It was fun to burn. As Apollo's cabin led the sing-along and passed out toasted marshmallows, I was surrounded by my old Hermes cabin mates, Annabeth's friends from Athena and Grover's satire buddies, who were admiring the brand new searcher's license he'd received from the Council of Cloven Elders. The council had called Grover's performance on the quest brave to the point of indigestion, horns and whiskers above anything we have seen in the past. Let me get the dog in. Let's see if she'll make an appearance. Okay. Come here. Just quick. Here she is. Say hello. I know. Oh, please don't. You want to help read the book? Are you going to help? Or are you going to... No, she's going to go. Now, is she going to sit down quietly or is she going to bark at me? Let's find out. The only ones not in a party mood were Clarice and her cabin mates, whose poisonous looks told me they'd never forgive me for disgracing their dad. That was okay with me. Even Dionysus's welcome home speech wasn't enough to dampen my spirits. Yes, so the little brat didn't get himself killed, and now he'll have an even bigger head. Well, huzzah for that. In other announcements, there will be no canoe races this Saturday. I moved back into cabin 3, but it didn't feel so lonely anymore. I had my friends to train with during the day. At night, I lay awake and listened to the sea, knowing my father was out there. Maybe he wasn't quite... Sorry. She's taking her bed apart. She's attacking it. So I hope you can hear me over the growling. Maybe he wasn't quite sure about me yet. Maybe he hadn't even wanted me born. He was watching, and so far he was proud of what I'd done. As for my... I'm sorry. As for my mother, she had a chance at a new life. Her letter arrived a week after I got back to camp. She told me Gabe had left mysteriously, disappeared off the face of the planet, in fact. She'd reported him missing to the police, but she had a funny feeling they would never find him. On a completely unrelated subject, she'd sold her first life-size concrete sculpture, entitled The Poker Player, to a collector through an art gallery in Soho. She'd got so much money for it, she'd put a deposit down on a new apartment and made a payment on her first term's tuition at NYU. The Soho Gallery was clamouring for more of her work. They called a huge step forward in superology neuralism. But don't worry, my mum wrote, I'm done with sculpture. I've disposed of that box of tools you left me. It's time for me to turn to writing. At the bottom, she wrote, P.S. Percy, I found a good private school here in the city. I put a deposit down to hold you a spot in case you want to enrol for 7th grade. You could live at home, but if you want to go year round at Half-Blood Hill, I'll understand. I folded the note carefully and set it on my bedside table. Every night before I went to sleep, I read it again, and I tried to decide how to answer her. On the 4th of July, the whole camp gathered at the beach for a fireworks display by Cabin 9. Being Hephaestus's kid, they weren't going to settle for a few lame red, white and blue explosions. They'd anchored a barge offshore and loaded it with rockets the size of Patriot missiles. According to Annabeth, who'd seen the show before, the blasts would be sequenced so tightly they'd look like frames of animation across the sky. The finale was supposed to be a couple of 30-metre tall Spartan warriors who would crackle to life above the ocean, fight a battle, and explode into a million colours. As Annabeth and I were spreading a picnic blanket, Grover showed up to tell us goodbye. He was dressed in his usual jeans and t-shirt and trainers, but in the last few weeks he'd started to look older, almost high school age. His goatee had got thicker, he'd put on weight. His horns had grown a few centimetres at least, so he now had to wear his rasta cap all the time to pass as human. "I'm off," he said. "I just came to say, well, you know." I tried to feel happy for him. After all, it wasn't every day a satyr got permission to go look for the great god Pan. But it was hard saying goodbye. I'd only known Grover a year, yet he was my oldest friend. Annabeth gave him a hug. She told him to keep his fake feet on. I asked him where he was going to search first. "Kind of a secret," he said, looking embarrassed. "I wish you guys could come with me. But humans and Pan, we understand," Annabeth said. "You got enough tin cans for the trip?" "Yeah." "And you remembered your reed pipes?" "Geez, Annabeth," he grumbled. "You're like an old mama goat." But he didn't really sound annoyed. He gripped his walking stick and slung a backpack over his shoulder. He looked like any hitchhiker you might see on an American highway. "What do you want? What's wrong?" "Nothing like the little runty boy I used to defend from bullies at Yancey Academy." "Well," he said, "wish me luck." He gave Annabeth another hug, clapped me on the shoulder, and headed back through the dunes. Fireworks exploded to life overhead. Hercules killing the Nemean lion, Artemis chasing the boar, George Washington, who, by the way, was a son of Athena, crossing the Delaware. "Hey, Grover!" I called. He turned at the edge of the woods. What do you want?" "Wherever you're going, I hope they make good enchiladas." Grover grinned, and then he was gone, the trees closing around him. "We'll see him again," Annabeth said. I tried to believe it. The fact that no searcher had ever come back in 2,000 years. Well, I decided not to think about that. Grover would be the first. He had to be. July passed, and let's see how much. July passed. I spent my days devising new strategies for capture the flag and making alliances with the other cabins to keep the banner of Air's hands. I got to the top of the climbing wall for the first time without getting scorched by lava. From time to time, I'd walk past the big house, glance up at the attic windows, and think about the oracle. I tried to convince myself that its prophecy had come to completion. "You shall go west and face the god who had turned." Been there, done that, even though the traitor god had turned out to be Ares rather than Hades. "You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned." Check. One master bolt delivered, one helmet of darkness back on Hades' oily head. "You shall be betrayed by one who called you a friend." This line still bothered me. Ares had pretended to be my friend, then betrayed me. That must be what the oracle meant. "And you shall fail to save what matters most in the end." I had failed to save my mum, only because I'd let her save herself, and I knew that was the right thing. So why was I still uneasy? Why are you so uneasy? What's wrong? You come here while I read the story? Right, sit down nicely then. Sit down. Sit down. 11. Oh, I thought you were coming for a cuddle. Story and a cuddle. But you're just being silly. The last night of summer session came all too quickly. The campers had one last meal together. We burned part of our dinner for the gods. At the bonfire, the senior councillors awarded the end of summer beads. I got my own leather necklace, and when I saw the bead for my first summer, I was glad the firelight covered my blushing. The design was pitch black, with the sea green trident shimmering in the centre. "The choice was unanimous," Luke announced. "This bead commemorates the first son of the sea god at his camp, and the quest he undertook into the darkest part of the underworld to stop a war." The entire camp got to their feet and cheered. Even Air's cabin felt obliged to stand. Athena's cabin steered Annabeth to the front so she could share in the applause. I'm not sure I'd ever felt as happy or sad as I did that moment. I'd finally found a family, people who cared about me and thought I'd done something right, and in the morning, Most of them would be leaving for the year there. And even though tomorrow is Saturday, I will send you the last half of the chapter tomorrow.